Who's still working on the survey? Anybody? Okay. You can also complete it at home if you prefer. It does close tonight. All right, so that would be last opportunity. If your parents, you might want to let your parents also know because their input is also welcome. Okay, you can use the same link for them. And let's see what we have here. You have a quiz Thursday on Sig Fig calculations with scientific notation. So that is section 2.2. The enriched section will include multi-step calculations, which we're going to go over today. Also, it's a good review of just regular sig figs because each individual step is like unenriched stuff. Yes? It's just the putting together that makes it enriched. Okay? And if you are doing the enriched stuff, the answer key is wrong for 2.2D, and I wanted to show you where on Teams you can find the corrections to that, although it might take a second. Here we go. So here were our survey links. I'll be getting rid of that post because we don't need it anymore, but corrections to Unit 2 are just in the general channel. Okay, so you can see there's number 15, 16, 18, and 17 are all corrected for you there. If you're not doing the enriched stuff, you won't even need to worry about those ones because they are all black diamond questions. Okay? So for today, we are going to go to page 38. Okay. And if you're like, I already know how to do this and I just want to work on the big Sig Fig review, your homework tonight is not to do every question because there's probably like 70 questions, but to do as much of it as you need to start feeling good about your quiz on Thursday. Enough so that if you have questions, you can ask them tomorrow. Yes? So maybe do like every second question or every third question, or skip the ones that are super easy, okay? But we are on, not that one, we're on 2.2D, page 38, multi-step Sig Fig calculation. Once we've gone through this, I will give you back for other quizzes, okay? Ones you did yesterday. All right, so in order to do multi-step calculations, you need to know your order of operations. What does B stand for? Brackets. E for exponents. D and M for division and multiplication. A and S for addition and subtraction. So we're going to follow the order of operations. We will use the Sig Fig rules in each step, but we're not going to round off. Okay, so when we're doing step number 1, we won't round off. When we're doing step number 2, we won't round off. We'll just keep track. It is almost impossible to get some of these questions right without actually writing out each step and keeping track of your uncertain digit in your sig figs. So you will probably want a lot of paper for this one, and when you write your quiz on Thursday, you can have as much scrap paper as you want, okay? You are keeping track of the uncertain digits in sig figs, and you round only at the very end, okay? Tell your partner, remind them what is the addition and subtraction rule. When you're adding or subtracting, you round to the first or largest uncertain digit. What is the rule for multiplication and division? Tell your partner. Round to the least number of sig figs. Okay, so we have those two rules in mind. Everybody, this first example is not enriched. This is for everyone. because it only involves multiplying and dividing, okay? So if you have a question like this one here, and you have 3 sig figs, 3 sig figs, 3 sig figs, and 2 sig figs, you just follow the multiplication and division rule, and you go with your smallest number of sig figs. Isaiah, could you close the door for us, please? Thank you. Thank you so much. When you plug that into your calculator, you get 28.5609, and you look and you say, I can only have 2 sig figs because there were 2 sig figs as the smallest number. So I look to the right, that would make it round up to 29, okay? So that could be, anybody could have to do that question. Next page. I would like you to actually plug this into your calculator and see what you get. And then you're going to choose your answer from A, B, C, or D. And if you don't have a calculator, there are some right here that you can borrow. Okay. Check with your partner, see if you agree with them. Okay. And we are going to vote on this, and I'm going to teach you how to do the sign language for A, which is you put your fingers on your palm and your thumb on the side, and that is the letter A. Okay. B, you put your palm straight up and you put your thumb on your palm, and that's the letter B. C, C, you just make a C with your hand, okay? D, you form a circle with your fingers and then you put your pointer finger up. You just make a circle, your pointer finger, not your pinky finger. So, yeah, okay? So, let's do it again. A, B, C, and D. Okay, and now you get to vote. Do you like A, B, C, or D? 3, 2, 1, vote. I got some C's, I've got some D's, I've got some A's. Okay, if you're getting A or B, then you need to tell your calculator to do it a little bit differently. Okay, because what you've probably done is you've probably typed in 8.79 times 14035 divided by 3.8 times 200, which means that now your calculator thinks that the times 200 is up here, and it will think that the times 87 is also up here. So if you got an A or a B, you need to change what you're typing into your calculator. 2 ways to do it. You can type in 8.79 times 14,035, and then this line, of course, means divided by, so we'll still have divided by 3.8. 200 is in the denominator, so we want to divide by 200. And 87 is in the denominator, so we want to divide by 87. That's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is to have your top part, 8.79 times 14035, and then we can divide by, you can put a bracket around everything on the bottom, 3.8 times 200 times 87. Okay, and if you do either one of those things, you'll end up with something close to 2. Okay, now How many sig figs should be in our answer? Only one. What number is limiting us to one sig fig? 200 has only one sig fig, okay? And that means our answer is D. Okay? All right. Now, both multiplying and dividing and adding and subtracting. For this next part, if you don't want to do the black diamond stuff, you can ignore like step 3, okay, or step 2. But the individual steps will actually be useful to you. So we have 6.8. Do I not have that over there? Okay, we have 6.8 plus 9.2 divided by 3.65. Okay, order of operations, what are we going to do first? Brackets. So that means for step 1, we're going to do the 6.8 plus 9.2, which all of you at this point should technically be able to do. This is adding and subtracting. So we are going to go to our first uncertain digit. The uncertain digits are the 8, which is in the 10th position, and the 2, which is in the 10th position. If I plug that into my calculator, 6.8 plus 9.2, I get 16. If this were the entire thing, would that be the correct answer? No, because I need my uncertain digit is in the 10th position. So I would need to add a 0.0. Okay? That means that in my answer, I have 3 sig figs. Okay, for step 1. Now step 2, we have the top part, which was 16.0. And we are now dividing by 3.65. Now we use the dividing rule, which is round to the least number of sig figs. We have 3 sig figs here, and we have 3 sig figs here, and we get 4.38356. There's some numbers after that, but I don't want all those numbers. All I want is how many sig figs? 3 sig figs. So we're going to go here. We're going to look to the right of the 8. That gives us a 3 there, so we're not going to round up. We are going to keep it as an 8, and then that would round to 4.38. You won't be marked on your work for this. You'll only be marked on your final answer, but like I said, it's really hard to keep track if you don't write it down, okay? All right, let's try this next one. And I'm going to grab it this way this time. This is much more clever than I was not last time. There we go. Okay. So in this case, if we do BEDMAS, we have no brackets, we have no exponents. So now we're looking at, we need to do the multiplications first. So we're going to do this, and we're going to do this before we do our subtraction. So this is going to be step 1, this is going to be step 2, and then step 3 will be the subtraction. Step 1, 50.35 times 0.106. 50.35 times 0.106 equals 5.3371. This is multiplication, so we want to go to the least number of sig figs in the calculation. Here we have 4 sig figs. How many in 0.106? 3. That means that our answer should have 3 sig figs. And if this were my final answer, I would round this to 5.34, but we're not going to round yet. Okay, keep that whole number. Keep the entire number. Step 2. $24.37 times 0.181 equals 24.37 times 0.181 equals 4.41097. And once again, we have, this is a multiplication, so we look at our number of sig figs, 4 sig figs, 3 sig figs. So this would be 3 sig figs. And now we're going to take this number, the entire thing, and this number, the entire thing. Did I get the number wrong? No? Okay, just checking. And I'm going to subtract them, okay? Because our next step is to do that subtraction. But remember, I'm not rounding those numbers off yet. I have step 3, which is doing the subtraction, is the first number, 5.3371, subtracting the second number, 4.41097, and we get 0.92613. Okay. Now remember though, I had 3 sig figs in this number, which means that my uncertain digit is the 3. That's our uncertain digit. And that is in the 1/100th position. Here I also have 3 sig figs, and my uncertain digit is also in the 1/100th position, which means that in my final answer, when I do a subtraction, my uncertainty should be in the 1/100th position. So that means when I round off now, I have to round to the 100ths. So I look to the right of the 2, and that would cause me to round that to 0.93. If you round off early, it can lead to an error. I don't know if it does in this case. Let's just try doing the rounding and see if it does. If I was to have rounded off early, let's say I rounded to 5.34 minus 4.41, 5.34 minus 4.41, I still get 0.93. So in this case, it would have been okay, but there are times where it won't be. And you won't see it. You'll just be like, you'll just get a rounding error written on your quiz or test, and you'll be like, oh, dang. So don't round off until the very end, just in case. Okay. Here is a nasty one. So I would guess that probably for most of you, maybe you won't be doing this one. However, you should be able to do steps 1 and step 2 for your quiz, regardless of whether you're doing enriched or not. So pay attention for that. When you have this line here, that division line, what it does is it means essentially it makes it as though everything on the top were in brackets and everything on the bottom was in brackets. So what you're going to do by having this line here, it means you've put brackets around the whole thing. You don't have to write them. That division line does it for you, okay? So we're going to do the top part, then we're going to do the bottom part, and then third, we're going to do the division. Okay, so let's take our top portion, step 1, 1.086 times 10 to the minus 2 minus 9.754 times 10 to the minus 3. I have different powers of 10. Can I just go throwing that into my calculator? No. Multiplying and dividing, can I throw those into my calculator? Yes. It doesn't matter, scientific notation, whatever. Multiplying and dividing, just throw them in your calculator, but adding and subtracting, you can't do it. What has to be the same before we can add these? The power of 10. Okay, so we need to take one of these powers of 10. I'm going to choose this one, okay, to turn into 10 to the negative 2. That part of the number, when you go from 10 to the negative 3 to 10 to the negative 2, did the exponent get bigger or smaller? It got bigger. And it got bigger by 1 power of 10, 10 to the 1. That means this first part of the number has to get smaller by 10 to the 1. So we're going to move our decimal place 1 place to make the number smaller. So we now have 0.9754 times 10 to the minus 2. So now our exponents are the same. We have 10 to the negative 2 and 10 to the negative 2. Our coefficients are 1.086 and 0.9754. So we can factor out the power of 10. Okay, so we're going to have over here times 10 to the negative 2. And our coefficients are 1.086. And then we are subtracting, the other coefficient, 0.9754. And remember, you're going to use your calculator only on the coefficients. Don't use it for the power of 10. Leave the power of 10, just have it hanging out here ready to go, 10 to the negative 2. So we take 1.086, 1.086, and we subtract 0.9754, and we get 0.1106 times 10 to the minus 2. If this was a single step problem and that was my final answer, I would have to put it in scientific notation and I would have to give it to correct sig figs. Because it's only step 1, I just need to figure out where my sig figs are. This was a subtraction, so what do I look at? I look at the first uncertain digit. So I have uncertainty in the thousandths, and I have uncertainty in the 10,000ths. That's hard to write. So I have uncertainty in the third decimal place, and I have uncertainty in the fourth decimal place, which means I have 3 sig figs. But I'm not going to round off. I'm not going to write 0.111 times 10 to the negative 2. I'm just going to leave it. Okay, that's step 1. Step 2. $2.7002 times 10 to the minus 4 plus 5.013 times 10 to the minus 3. Again, we are adding things with powers of 10, and so they have to be to the same coefficient, which right now they are not. Last time I went to the higher power of 10. This time to make it different, I'm going to go to the lower power of 10. Okay, so I'm going to take my 10 to the 3, and I'm going to change it to 10 to the negative 4 to match our other one. Okay. When we go from 10 to the negative 3 to 10 to the negative 4, that got smaller by 10 to 1, which means our coefficient has to get bigger by 10 to 1. So our decimal place is going to move to the right to give us 50.13 times 10 to the negative 4. So now we have 2.7002 times 10 to the negative 4 plus 50.13 times 10 to the negative 4. And we're going to factor out the times 10 to the negative 4. So our coefficients then are 2.7002 plus 50.13. I'll rewrite that plus, it looks a little funky. There we go. All right, and we get 2.7002 plus 50.13 equals 52.8302 times 10 to the negative 4. Because we've reached the end of a step, we need to figure out where our uncertain digit and our sig figs are. I am adding. Which one should I be looking at? Uncertainty or sig figs? Uncertainty. Our uncertain digit is in the fourth decimal place and in the second decimal place. So the second decimal place is the biggest one. So that means that our number actually has only 4 sig figs, but we're going to keep all our digits. This number up here, that was the top of our calculation. So I'm going to rewrite that number again. Okay, actually maybe I can make it small so you can see everything at once. So I have the top, which is 0.1106 times 10 to the negative 2, that's on the top. And the bottom is this part here. We're going to divide by 52.8302. But I'm going to keep track because now I'm dividing. I need to know how many sig figs there are. Up here, we have 3 sig figs, 0.110. So down here, we have 3 sig figs. Yes? Oh, yes, I would. I forgot that. Sorry. Thank you. Times 10 to the negative 4. There we go. Thank you, thank you, thank you. 3 sig figs, which we figured out back in step 1. The 52.8302 actually has 4 sig figs, so I'm going to just keep track of that here. I have 4 sig figs. So I have now 0.1106 e to negative divided by 52.8302 e4 negative equals 0.20934. But because I've just done a division, I need to go to my smallest number of sig figs, which is 3. 1, 2, 3. So that's now going to round to 0.209, and that would be my final answer. Okay? So, like I said, you are not responsible for necessarily doing all of the steps, and putting it all together at the end, but each individual step is something that you could potentially be expected to do. So if you have not yet done any of 2.2D, you could do some of that. Okay. You can try some of that, and you could try the big Sig Fig review. Okay, I might start with this actually. If you're really interested in the multiple step ones, like if you're sort of at that level where you want that challenge, then page 41, the black diamond questions would be appropriate. Okay, but just bear in mind, remember, these 4 questions down here, the answer key is, actually for these 3, the answer key is wrong. Where would you go to find the correct answer? Go on Teams, okay? And for this one, it's actually the question that's wrong. If you want to correct this one right away, you can just go to question 18. That shouldn't be a positive 4, it should be a negative 4. Okay, that's on page 41. Okie dokie. And so we're just doing this for the rest of class, okay? Tomorrow we'll do more unit conversions. We'll do some converting units in the denominator.